to the Business Blueprint Podcast, where we take you on an exciting adventure through our triumphs and challenges and failures in creating and maintaining a thriving 6, 7, and 8-figure business. Get ready to dive into our strategies, decisions, and yes, even valuable lessons we've learned from our missteps. But that's not all. We'll also bring you industry-leading guests who will provide you with their priceless insights and wisdom. Stay tuned because the captivating journey of the Business Blueprint begins right now. Hi, I'm Charles Hatley with the Business Blueprint, and today I'm joined by Dan and Rebecca, and what we're going to be talking about is how do we build our perfect team? When we're talking about growing our business, we can't grow our business as a singular person, right? Unless you're trying to say, look, I just want to be a one-person shop consultant. I just want to have a job where I work for my business. That's one thing. But if you're saying, I really want my business to work for me, you can't do that without putting together the right team. And as you're putting together this team, one of the things that we've learned is how do we make every aspect of our team respect the other aspects? And I always get the example of how do I make my production team respect my sales team? How do I make my sales team respect my intake team, and my intake team respect my marketing team, and all down the line? And I love to give a circular idea, right? Without marketing, intake would have nothing to do. Without intake, sales would have nothing to do. Without sales, production would have nothing to do. Without production, the finance team would have nothing to do. Without the finance team, marketing would have no money for marketing. So I really wanted to throw it to you, Dan. How do you set it? How do you set on the path of even thinking about this team?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because we're all programmed to think we have these verticals and these org charts, and it is what it is. But at the end of the day, the circular idea that you have is spot on in a sense that you have both and they coexist together. And what I mean by that is it's good to have an org chart because you want those verticals and you want to know who reports to who, and if you have questions, who to go to, and it's good for accountability purposes. But you want that circle because every one of us works together, regardless of where we fall in the org chart or what our position is. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your business is, right? If you're selling a service or a widget or whatever it is, we all have the same goal, and that is to increase sales, increase revenue, increase profitability, and hopefully be happy going to work the majority of the time. And without those, we're going to fail. And so at the end of the day, it starts with hiring, in my opinion. And you have to bring on the right people who believe in what you're doing. And believe in what you're doing means believe in your vision and your mission. That's where it starts. And that's when you hire based upon your vision and your mission. I know we've had a couple episodes where we've talked about it, but it's worth mentioning again because it's so important. Everything starts there. And then once you have that buy-in, you have those individuals who do believe in that, then they're going to hopefully produce and perform well, and then they're going to hire and build their team. And it's instilling that confidence in that belief in that person so they can grow the team and really start inculcating to their team members that we're all part of the same team, which is we want to be able to do better, which is grow the business. And we all have to rely on one another because if we don't, then we get stuck in these silos, and then you get issues arising that either could develop internally or externally. And at the end of the day, the client is the one that's really being penalized because everyone in the company isn't necessarily getting along and really wanting to put out the best product. And the best product is going to allow the company to grow. So that circular fashion involves a lot of communication. So once you have your teams and you have who reports to who and you know who's accountable for what, then that's where that circular idea I think really comes into play because you have to be able to have open and honest communication and feedback. Because the example you gave, we want to make sure that maybe when you start with your marketing, they go out, they do their thing, and intake saying, "Oh, the phones aren't really ringing, or we're bringing in just probably not the best fit client. Here's what I'm seeing and why." So the marketing takes that and tweaks it, and then intake gets the clients coming in and sends it over to production, and production's like, "Oh, I don't know if this is the type of client that we really want. So how about we, let here's our ideal client, right? Our avatar per se. And then intake says, okay, so they feel to call, oh, well, we don't practice that type of law or we don't provide that type of service. So then you're not really wasting the client's time and then on the production side. And then the production hopefully does a good job with the client, and then the client pays their bill, so we have the revenue, and then the client goes out and with word of mouth says, oh, I hired this firm, I hired this company, or I bought this widget, whatever it is, and they did a great job. I highly recommend you use them. And so that's how I kind of see the circle and the org chart working together.
Hmm. And Rebecca, as the owner entrepreneur, the executive entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it at this time, how do you handle making sure that all of these parts function together, and how do you identify when you could no longer manage these parts?
Yeah. So both parts are kind of tricky. We want to make sure that we're always getting the feedback, whatever it is, good, bad, ugly, medium, whatever. And so we try to make sure that it's known company wide that we are open to all the feedback. We want to make sure that we're putting you in the right position to do your job the way that you want to do, right? And so sometimes you have complaints from one area about another area, and of course you never want to say, hey, sales said that you're being rude or whatever. But we want to take the feedback, then look into it further, and then be able to correct or adjust or do whatever needs to be done on the flip side without saying somebody told on you or somebody complained about you. It's just, we've looked into this and we've noticed a couple of problems, and here's how we propose a solution, or what do you think could be a solution, something like that. But letting everybody know that we're open to that feedback, and regardless of how good or how bad or how seemingly menial it might be, we want to make sure that we're always working to improve everybody's position across the company. We want everyone to be excited about their position. We want everybody to be excited to come to work. So I think that's the biggest piece of that puzzle. Um, as far as knowing when to hire someone else to manage, I would say we've done well and we've done poorly. Like we've got lots of examples of both. But when you really evaluate where your time is going every day, and so that's an exercise that's been really useful for me. What am I spending the most time on every day? And sometimes it takes literally writing it down. These are all the things that I worked on today. What's taking up the majority of my time? Where could I hire somebody to help? And so at one point, the majority of my time was going to managing attorneys, and yours was too, right? So across all of our offices, managing 20 attorneys takes a lot of time if you're meeting with each one of them for at least an hour every week, having follow-up questions, helping them review paperwork, all of those things. And so we both had the realization of we don't have time. I can't calendar this any better. I don't have the room anymore. We really need to have somebody who steps in and takes this on, and they can devote a full 40 hours a week to it. So I would say that's an example where we recognized it. We were very analytical about it. And then we hired the right person for that position. Sometimes I would say you just hire because you have the right candidate, and you're maybe not bursting at the seams on the capacity, but you have an opportunity, and we would be ready for this person 3 months from now, but we're not going to delay it because they're not going to be there 3 months from now. So we're going to go ahead and hire them, and then they can help build out the team, that they need moving forward. So I would say those are kind of the two ways: is evaluating your time and what you're doing and what you're committed to, and then just recognizing talent when it comes across the door.
Yeah, I love the idea of recognizing talent and being in the position to actually take the talent when it comes to you, right? And that requires an extreme attention to your finances. You can't be running razor thin margins and have your employment cost be 90% of your gross income. You have to watch those, not to try to get too much into a financial conversation on this, but being able to grab that talent when it's there means that you have to be fastidious about your finances from day one. You can't be fastidious about your finances once you identify that talent. Dan, I'll kind of throw you the same question of, when you're working and you start identifying the need that I can't do all of the management that I need to do. How do you know that? How do you know when to start hiring managers to put between you and your direct reports?
I I learned a valuable lesson on a few years ago when I was tapped to run a company, and as Rebecca said, you just get so caught into the weeds, everything, and you really just can't focus on the higher level, bigger picture strategy. And I wrote everything down on what I did, and I wrote how much time it took and what my rate was and what it cost me, essentially. And so to me, I wrote, put A, B, and C next to all these tasks I did, and all the C's are the ones that I didn't want to do. So I knew I wanted to hire somebody for that. The B's were tasks that I needed to hire somebody for, and then the A's were one that I wanted to do. And so the A's I cut with me, the C's I definitely found someone to hire for, and the B's I try to bifurcate to see is there a need now and put out some feelers to your point to see what talent is out there, and if someone did come along that was a good talent that I didn't want to pass on because they may not be here, and if you've identified the need and you see the talent and you are fastidious with the money or the budget. Sometimes you have to just take that leap of faith and hire that person because bigger picture, it'll help you out. And then that took me out of the weeds to really be able to look at things from a more strategic standpoint and move that company forward and start really breaking down the silos that were part of that company and going back to the circular economy to make sure that everyone felt valued. And when the employee feels valued and they feel part of something, then you get they work harder and they feel at the end of the day that they've actually completed something or they're part of something. No one wants to feel that they're just going to work 9 to 5 where their hours are and they're not accomplishing anything. They're just a placeholder or they're just a pawn or something, right? They want to know, okay, my job matters to this company and the role that I play is important because then it leads to this role. And really encouraging the team members to feel that way and the managers to manage that way allows you to get back to your circular example, which in my opinion, a lot of companies don't recognize that and they're stuck back into the whole verticals and not really having all the accountabilities. They think having an org chart's great and it looks cool and neat, but at the end of the day, you really need to be able to determine are my employees in the right seats and in the right positions, and that's part of the circular motion as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up, how to work with people so they actually look forward to coming to work. One of the books that I really enjoy is called Looking Forward to Monday by Adam Whitty. I think, it would be a little bit too hopeful to hope that every single person is excited for Monday as I am. But, we want people to not dread coming to work on Monday. And the way that we do that is we focus so much on this idea of employee experience, which we've talked about so much, and how to make every part of the business respect the other part. If you have, like Rebecca said, a failure of respect between even two people that are communicating over some form of communication, that can drive like between production and the finance department. That could drive so much disdain because the production department's talking bad about the finance department's talking about the production department. It's just because two people. And you could jump in there and say, hey, let's fix this whole problem. And that comes from, like you said, Dan, getting out of the weeds. When you put the right managers in place, they're going to be able to devote 40 hours a week towards those teams that, for me, I like to break it down to percentages. I'm very honest with the people that I directly manage now. On this particular issue, I'm giving you 8% of my brain because the other 92% of my brain has to be focused on these other issues. That's not fair to you. When I fall below about 15%, I know it's time for me to hire a manager and get somebody in there that's going to give you 100%. And that's very tough because it's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. And so, Rebecca, how did you, in hiring your first manager, really digest how much it cost and how long did it before you actually saw an increase in overall production? Because you're pretty much not from a manager going to see an increase in you're not going to see a direct line profit from them. But how long before you saw like, oh wow, things are going better?
Right. So I would say it didn't take very long at all, especially in looking at managing attorneys and having someone who's really knowledgeable with litigation, who can answer questions, who can help you figure out how to do cases and how to take all the right steps that you need to do. It made everybody else so much more efficient and also took some of that weight off of just feeling like you didn't have the time or the access or the mentorship, right? So having that little bit of relief, and then you can kind of slow down and take your time and do what you need to do on all of your cases. I would say in that example, it was a month maybe that we saw a difference financially. And I can certainly see with other positions where it'll take longer. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months. But if you have someone who really knows their department, they know the pieces they need to put together, they know how to utilize what you have and how to improve it, you're going to see an overall improvement, and you're going to have happier people who are then delivering happier customers, right? So again, it's that whole circle. Once you have happy employees, they're better able to deliver on your mission and your values to your customers.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, when you were identifying your A, B, and C tasks, you talked about the A things, the things that you wanted to do. How do you give up the things that you want to do, like things that you like to do, but is no longer the best for the overall company for you to be doing?
That's hard. And complete transparency, it's a learning curve, and it because you're so used to being the one that's making those decisions. But once you remove yourself and you find that right person, and we've talked at length about identifying them as the A player, you have to just trust them. You take that leap of faith. Otherwise, why would you have that person in that seat? But you don't want to be the diminisher, right? On that book that we've talked about as well. You want to be that multiplier, which the book I believe is called Multipliers. And I've read that book a couple times. I listened to it on audio a couple times. And I still pick up new things, but it just resonates with me because it reminds me of my journey in leadership and in executive managing, to where when I first started it. I had no idea what the heck I was doing, but that's because there was no mentorship. It was just boop, here you go. And it's like, well, what the heck do I do? So it really is, it's growing and developing employees into leaders and identifying who those are, and hopefully moving them up and grooming them. But if you're bringing someone in from the outside, then these are the tasks. Because I had to hire other executive levels because I just couldn't do it all. And I didn't want to because it wasn't good for the company. There's certain tasks that I'm just not good at, and I know that. So I wanted someone to be able to come in and do those. But you want to surround yourself by great people. That doesn't diminish you as the leader. That actually shows that okay, here's who I need to hire and what I need to hire for to allow me to succeed. Because I want to be able to rely on these individuals to help me make decisions. And so taking that step back, that was the hardest thing, because even though I had the right people and I was excited that they came on board, it still was okay. Here's what you need to do. And then eventually I just stopped. I was like, Dan, you can't. And it was hard, but I wanted the person to grow. And we've talked about this before, and it sounds kind of silly, but you also want them to fail because they're going to learn from that. And then as the leader, I'm there to pick them up and identify, here's what happened, what you think happened, and here's what we can do to move forward. And it's not a discussion in a punitive way. It's okay, how can we learn from this and grow, and what can help the company or the firm. But yeah, it was definitely just taking that step back. And my advice to most leaders, you hired the person for a certain position or task, let them do it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it is hard. I know that I've had to give up things that I liked doing. I like doing sales, and I had to give that up and watched sales go up as soon as I got out of it. So it is hard. And you talk about surrounding yourself with good people. There are a lot of case studies out there about Lee Iacocca, who ran Chrysler almost into the ground, but was considered from the Ford Motor Company to be one of the up and coming executives. And in the case studies, they always talked about how Lee Iacocca did not surround himself with the best talent because he was the best in his mind. He was the best. And even after he left Chrysler, he was still flying on the Chrysler private plane and draining money from the company to go be the best that he was, because he never took the time, like Jim Collins talks about in Good to Great, to have people be around you that are so much better than you that they can take the company to the next level. They can, and even when you're talking about something much smaller than taking company to the next level, they can take what you were doing to the next level. So, Rebecca, can you give me, other than the manager, what are other areas where you've watched somebody take something from you and then take it to the next level?
Yeah. I mean, the example you gave with sales is great. And I would say even just with practicing law, taking that step from being the one doing all the cases to then hiring an attorney who's gonna, take over and directly litigate and take that caseload on. That was a major mental hurdle for me at the time. But again, I was devoting however much time per week to client work and then also trying to do the finances and trying to do some sales and trying to do some of this and trying to do some of that. And I wasn't able to devote all the time that I needed to my clients. So bringing somebody in who then spent 40 hours a week just in that mode of litigation and family law, there's an improvement right away. And of course, there's that little bit of transition pain for the client because they know me, they're used to talking to me, and now they have to talk to a new person. And who is this person? And I don't know them, and all of that. But once you get past that hurdle, and they could see that this person is going to be more available for your questions, this person is going to give you more time and attention, they all get on board pretty quickly with it after that. So I would say that was a major one of those moments where it was like, oh, as much as I love it, as much as I love going to court and litigating these cases and thinking about these really interesting fact patterns and all of that, I had to unload that from my task list every week. And so one way that I can now kind of like dip my toe in that is we have our MH University where we get to talk to all of our newer attorneys each week about just best practices, and we can kind of collaborate, come up with ideas. They talk about their problem cases and we all kind of strategize together. And so I love that now I still have like a little bit of that, but it's just that. It's just a little bit. I'm not directly handling anybody's case, but I can still kind of dip into that area. I think that's kind of the best of both worlds if you can get that.
Hi, this is Dan Cuneo with the Business Blueprint. Thank you for taking time to listen to this week's podcast. Please join us next week for part 2.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this insightful and entertaining, be sure to hit subscribe below and join us on social media to get more insight into what we are going through each and every day.